You know, look, I didn't turn him down because I don't like him or I don't believe in his case. I think he's got a very defensible case.
Diddy's courtroom saga just took a wild turn after one of his own lawyers suddenly quit right in the middle of the case when some explosive audio was played in court. But the craziest part is that this isn't even the first time one of Diddy's top lawyers has walked away, with another one leaving before the trial even started. And whatever's going on with this case seems to be so intense that even the best legal minds are backing off fast. In this video, we're breaking down the real reason Diddy's lawyer walked out, what was in that shocking audio that left everyone rattled, and how this could blow up everything Diddy's been trying to keep hidden. Let's get into it. The shocking resignation had everyone completely stunned when one of Diddy's top defense attorneys, Anthony Rico, suddenly quit just 3 months before the trial was set to begin. And the timing looks super suspicious, with Diddy facing serious charges like sex trafficking, racketeering, conspiracy, and transporting people for prostitution. Because if he loses this case, he could be looking at spending the rest of his life in prison. But before we get into the full story behind Rico's sudden exit, let's talk about who Anthony Rico really is and why his leaving is such a major deal, since this guy is far from your everyday lawyer. He's a serious legal heavyweight, with a resume that would make most attorneys jealous, having worked on massive cases like the World Trade Center bombing conspiracy and the 1998 embassy bombings. According to his profile on the Forum Law University website, Rico has handled some of the toughest cases out there, including being the lead defense lawyer in up to 45 federal death penalty cases, and on top of all that, he's also a law professor who's been practicing since way back in 1982, so his experience in high-stakes federal court made him a huge asset to Diddy's legal team. He joined the defense shortly after Diddy got arrested in September 2024, teaming up with another powerful lawyer, Alexander Shapiro, who had previously defended Sam Bankman-Fried. And funny enough, he and Diddy were neighbors at the detention center, which made Diddy's already strong legal team, led by Mark Agnello and Tenny Garagos, even more stacked. But then, on February 21st, 2025, just a few months before the trial was supposed to start in May, Rico shocked everyone by filing a motion to quit the case, and the way he explained it was vague but seriously troubling, leaving everyone wondering what's really going on behind the scenes.
The reason set forth below, this motion for withdrawals is filed so that Sean Combs may move forward with his defense and to commence jury selection and trial without any delay.
While the exact reason for Rico's exit is still under wraps because of attorney-client privilege, the timing of his resignation and the way he phrased his statement got everyone's minds racing, with some legal experts guessing that there might have been disagreements over the defense strategy, while others think maybe some new evidence came up that created a serious ethical issue for Rico. And former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani explained it all in an interview with Law and Crime.
Significant, and it's tough to know the reason why. It could be any number of possibilities. Sometimes it's when the lawyer hasn't been paid, but we know obviously Diddy doesn't have that problem. He's got plenty of money. It could be a disagreement regarding defense strategy. It could be a conflict. It could be a health issue. It really could be anything, and the paperwork doesn't identify it, nor.
What makes this whole situation even more confusing is that Rico seemed fully committed to Diddy's defense right up until the moment he walked away. And people who were inside the courtroom said Rico was often seen hanging out with Diddy, passing notes during hearings, and even giving him hugs. Plus, he constantly made sure the judge knew that Diddy's family had traveled a long way to New York just to support him at the hearing, which made it clear he was personally invested in the case. But when asked what might have caused Rico to suddenly step back, Rahmani listed several possible reasons.
Potentially, it could be a conflict with the client, right? A disagreement. They just don't get along. The communication is poor. They don't agree on defense strategy. It could be a conflict with one of the other lawyers. Obviously, it seems like Agnifilo is the lead on this case, although Rico was certainly his one.
He also brought up another interesting possibility that added even more mystery to the situation.
And then it could be a conflict with one of the victims themselves. Maybe maybe Rico consulted with them or even represented them in such a way that he has to get off it.
Even with Rico gone, Diddy's legal team was still stacked with 5 attorneys holding it down: Mark Agnello, Tenny Garagos, Alexander Shapiro, Jason Driscoll, and Anna Estau. And according to Rico's legal filing, his departure wouldn't slow the case down, and the government didn't object to his motion to step away since he had already discussed discussed it with Mark Agnello before officially filing it, so most people expected the judge would just approve his request without much issue. But the timing of Rico's exit sparked a lot of questions, especially because it happened just days after Diddy's legal team tried to get one of the charges dropped, specifically the third count in his indictment, which accused him of transportation to engage in prostitution. And Diddy's lawyers argued that this charge should be thrown out because it comes from a law rooted in racism, pointing out that no white person has ever faced this type of charge since it falls under the Mann Act, which Congress originally named the White Slave Traffic Act, a law that makes it illegal to transport people across state or international borders for prostitution, and Diddy's team claimed that the law has a deep history of racial discrimination. But when Romani was asked whether that argument could actually work in court, he wasn't convinced.
They're very difficult motions to win. So it's essentially a selective prosecution motion. And the example I always like to give is, let's say you're speeding and a police officer pulls you over. It's not a legal defense to say, well, all these other people were speeding, but you didn't pull them over and ticket them. You have to show that the prosecution is for a constitutionally prohibited reason, obviously race being one of them.
As we dig deeper into this case, you have to wonder what could have been so serious that it made Anthony Rico, a veteran lawyer with decades of experience in major cases, suddenly decide to walk away from defending one of the biggest names in the music industry, and whether it had anything to do with the rumored audio that was supposedly played in court. Because while everyone was trying to figure out why Rico abruptly left Diddy's legal team, rumors started flying about a possible link between his exit and a recording said to have been played in court, but the most damaging piece of audiovisual evidence in the case, that 2016 surveillance footage showing Combs putting hands on his ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura in a Los Angeles hotel, wasn't actually played in court until May 2025, months after Rico had already stepped down, and this video, which reportedly included audio of Cassie calling for security, left the courtroom dead silent when it was finally presented during trial. But that moment came long after Rico had already said goodbye to the case, since he had joined Diddy's legal team in September 2024 after Diddy was arrested on federal charges. And for about 5 months, he worked hard alongside other lawyers to prep for the trial. And during that time, some major moves were made in the case, like pre-trial hearings and talks around the evidence, with Judge Arun Subramanian setting May 5th, 2025 as the trial start date on October 10th and addressing concerns about leaks by federal agents. Then later, on December 18th, there was a brief hearing where prosecutors discussed evidence sharing, but no one mentioned any audio. And then on February 3rd, Diddy was supposed to appear in court, but the hearing got delayed because he reportedly had to go to the hospital. And just a few weeks later, on February 21st, Rico filed his motion to walk away. And the timing raised eyebrows because it came shortly after Diddy's lawyers filed that motion to throw out the Mann Act charge, calling it racially biased, which led some legal experts to suspect there may have been disagreements within the defense team about using that argument, including Joe Tacopina, a well-known attorney who had actually declined the chance to represent Diddy himself, and who later shared his own take on the situation.
You know, look, I didn't turn him down because I don't like him or I don't believe in his case. I think he's got a very defensible.
He explained what he believes is the main issue.
Hey, this whole case boils down to an issue of consent, right? As far as I know, I don't know all the evidence, but it's an issue of consent, right? Did they consent or did they not? I mean, was a gun put to someone's head, or did they want to do it because they were getting all the perks associated with being part of a Diddy party and being one of Diddy's entourage, right? Did he buy him a house or cars and stuff? He didn't have to buy anyone a car or a house.
Tacopina's comments highlighted what would become the main strategy of Diddy's defense team, which was to argue that everything was consensual and that the accusers might be chasing money, and this appeared to be the route Diddy's remaining lawyers took during the trial that began in May 2025, and when asked why he turned down the case, Tacopina pointed to scheduling conflicts rather than any doubts about Diddy's innocence.
Well, my turning it down was because I had Rocky's trial coming up, and a host of other things. So it's not about, I don't think he's innocent or I don't like him or anything like that. It's not that at all. It was just timing for me. It really was more about timing than anything.
Interestingly, Tacopina also responded to the rumors that his connection with Jay-Z and Roc Nation played a role in his decision to turn down the case.
that got taken way out of it. I do have a great relationship with Jay and Rock Nation. I represent a lot of them. I think that was, first of all, I know of no personal issue between Jay and Diddy. I have no personal knowledge of that. So, someone, I think it was on the Breakfast Club, sort of extrapolated that, but that would have nothing to do with it. No one at Rock Nation ever told me not to represent him. So, that I think was misconstrued and probably taken out of context.
While Tacopina's decision not to represent Diddy seemed simple, the reasons behind Rico's exit remain far more unclear. What we do know is that before stepping away, Rico had discussions with lead counsel Mark Agnifilo, suggesting there was at least some internal coordination about his departure. Without confirmed details on what led Rico to step down, several theories have surfaced. One idea is that he may have had ethical concerns or disagreed with certain defense strategies. Another theory points to the high-profile nature of the case, along with multiple civil lawsuits and intense media pressure, possibly creating overwhelming stress for the defense team. Some speculate that Rico may have reviewed sensitive evidence, like audio or video, that raised red flags. But if that happened, it wasn't in open court and remains only speculation. As for other possible audio evidence, there was a rumored 2023 audio leak involving Diddy and Meek Mill, but that was proven fake and unrelated to the case. No credible sources confirmed any real, relevant audio being played in court or shared with the defense before February 21st, 2025. What is confirmed is that Rico's resignation set social media on fire, with X and Reddit buzzing about how sudden and mysterious it seemed. Some believed it was caused by new evidence or internal conflict, but none of these theories have been backed by solid reporting. The lack of concrete details only made the public more curious, especially given how massive the case is. As things moved forward without Rico, Diddy's legal troubles got even worse, with several civil lawsuits accusing him of sexual assault and abuse, which he dismissed as money grabs. The trial, expected to run for 8 to 10 weeks, drew in celebrities, journalists, and curious spectators, turning the courtroom into a media circus at times. By May 2025, when the trial finally began, the defense leaned into a strategy arguing that Diddy's behavior reflected a consensual swinger lifestyle rather than criminal acts, while the prosecution focused on a pattern of pressure and violence. This echoed Tacopina's earlier suggestion to center the case on the issue of consent. On the first day of testimony, May 12, 2025, prosecutors brought in their star witness, a former security guard who had responded to the 2016 incident caught on the now infamous surveillance footage. And according to his testimony, the case began to take on a whole new level of intensity.
Also testified that he witnessed Combs assault Cassie in their home and that he feared for his own life but eventually befriended Cassie. Now, the person to testify before him was the hotel security guard who responded to the incident caught on surveillance video in that Los Angeles hotel back in 2016 when Diddy was caught on video assaulting Cassie. And he testified that Diddy threw a sack of money at him in their hotel room afterwards.
This testimony, along with the surveillance video, has become central to the prosecution's case. And even without Rico on the defense team, the video, which leaked in May 2024, shows Diddy putting his hands on Cassie Ventura in a hotel hallway, an incident he later publicly apologized for. The judge allowed the video as evidence, ruling there was no unfair bias against Mr. Combs, despite the defense team's claim that CNN had manipulated the footage. As the trial continues, Anthony Rico's absence remains a major subplot in this high-profile case. Whether his exit was due to audio evidence, ethical concerns, disagreements on strategy, or something else entirely, it marks a key moment in the legal battle against one of the biggest stars in the music industry. The trial, which began in May 2025 at the Daniel Patrick Moynihan Courthouse in Lower Manhattan, has drawn huge media attention and public interest, with proceedings expected to last about 8 weeks and every update closely analyzed by legal experts and the public. Jury selection, which started on May 5, 2025, was thorough and complicated, with potential jurors required to fill out detailed questionnaires about their knowledge of the case, media exposure, personal experiences with sexual assault or domestic violence, opinions on law enforcement, views on hip-hop artists, and attitudes towards sex, drugs, violence, and multiple sexual partners. This deep vetting was necessary because of the case's fame and sensitive accusations. By May 12, 2025, a jury of 12 main jurors and 6 alternates, 12 men and 6 women, was finalized, allowing the trial to proceed with opening statements and the first witnesses. The defense team, now led by Mark Agnifilo and including attorneys Tenny Garagos, Brian Steele, and others, adopted a strategy focusing on consent as the main issue, just as Joe Takina had suggested earlier, trying to show the alleged victims as willing participants who benefited from their connection to Diddy. Fox 5 reporter Michelle Ross, covering the first day of the trial, described some of the intense and dramatic testimony presented.
The latest witness to take the stand today is a man named Daniel Phillips, and he was a male strip show manager. He would manage male strippers who would perform for things like bachelorette parties. But he said that he was paid to have sex with Cassie Ventura back in 2013 in a New York City hotel while Sean Diddy Combs allegedly sat in the corner, watched, and masturbated.
The testimony continued with increasingly graphic details that painted a vivid picture of the events, adding tension and drama to the courtroom as both sides prepared for a tough battle ahead.
Morning, his family entered the courthouse while leaving a black van. This includes his children, his sons, and also his twin daughters. His family has heard graphic allegations of the alleged sexual encounters, and his daughters walked out during that test.
These details match what the prosecutors describe as freak-off encounters, which they say involved coercion and exploitation, while the defense argues they were consensual adult activities. And the prosecution's case has largely depended on testimonies from people like Phillips and Israel Flores, a former security guard at the Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles, who responded to the 2016 incident shown on surveillance video, according to Ross.
Phillips, the second witness of the day, said he was told by his boss that he was going to perform at a bachelorette party at the Gramercy Park Hotel, but when he arrived, he saw Cassie in red lingerie and a red wig. He testified she said that they would rub baby oil on each other and would see where things would go from there while her husband was there. Combs was allegedly in a corner in a white robe, concealing his face with a bandana.
Former federal prosecutor Nima Romani, commenting on the trial, highlighted the importance of the video evidence in supporting the prosecution's case.
It's going to be interesting because, again, you have someone who is going to be very sympathetic. She's a pregnant woman. She is a victim, admittedly, at least of physical violence. The defense is going to argue that she was not sexually assaulted. But I think you have to be careful because if you're very aggressive, and obviously you want to do a good job for your client if you're a defense lawyer, you can really turn off the jury.
This highlights a major challenge for the defense, which is how to carefully cross-examine witnesses, especially Cassie Ventura, who is pregnant, without causing the jury to sympathize with them, and Romani explained this delicate balance.
They're going to talk about some of the things that came up in opening statement, right? The jealousy, the fact that she stayed in this relationship for more than a decade. I mean, these are all the questions that the jurors are going to have. That's why the prosecution is going to try to bring in an expert witness that's going to talk about the psychology of an abuse victim, why someone might stay in a relationship, even though they're being physically and sexually.
The main question in this trial revolves around whether force, fraud, or coercion were involved, which are the elements needed to prove sex trafficking, Romani explained.
Was talking about the baby oil, and it came up during Garagos' opening statement. She said there's nothing illegal about, having a lot of baby oil. But baby oil is important to the allegations in the case because you saw Philip come and testify that Combs wanted Cassie covered in baby oil when he was filming them having sex. He would assault her and Philip would become uncomfortable and grab her by the hair.
He continued.
So we're really seeing what the government is saying with respect to the force element. Yeah, this case isn't about baby oil, but it's about Combs's manipulation and forcing Cassie Ventura to have sex under his terms, which included a lot of baby oil.
These so-called freak-offs, which are central to both the prosecution and defense narratives, have been described in completely different ways by each side, with the prosecution presenting them as exploitative situations where victims were pressured or manipulated, often while under the influence of drugs like ecstasy, cocaine, and GHB, while the defense has framed them as consensual encounters between adults that may have been unusual, but were not illegal. A major turning point in the case came when Diddy reportedly declined a plea deal on May 1, 2025, choosing instead to take the case to trial. And although the exact terms of the offer weren't made public, his decision to reject it either shows confidence in his legal team's strategy or a refusal to accept any guilt. Meanwhile, outside the criminal trial, Diddy is facing an overwhelming wave of civil lawsuits, more than 63 as of the last report, alleging a wide range of misconduct including sexual assault, harassment, and abuse, with some claims stretching. all the way back to the 1970s and continuing through 2023, making the criminal proceedings even more intense and complex, despite the fact that these civil suits are officially separate. Legal expert Nima Rahmani weighed in on the rising number of accusers in his analysis of the case.
This is a case that's going to be aggressive. It's going to be about cross-examination, and I think Cassie may take the stand as early as tomorrow, and they're going to be fireworks. I think one important takeaway, too, is we didn't know if victim number 3 would show up or testify. At least in their opening statement, the prosecution talked about a victim 3. So, obviously, if you're trying this case, you want more victims to tell the same story. So if indeed victim 3 shows up, I think that helps the government.
The importance of having multiple victims share similar stories cannot be overstated in a case that largely depends on credibility, as the prosecution's strategy to show a pattern of behavior through several witnesses strengthens their argument that Diddy operated a criminal network centered on the exploitation of women. This trial carries weight far beyond Diddy alone, as it has been described as a possible turning point for the music industry, exposing long-standing rumors of abuse and toxic power dynamics that have existed behind the scenes for years. When Dioum asked whether this trial signals such a reckoning, Jaguar Wright, a supporter of the alleged victims, shared her response.
Reckoning for the music industry?
Oh, it needs to be. And if it wasn't, I hope my presence starts.
For Diddy personally, the stakes couldn't be higher. If he's found guilty on all charges, he's facing at least 15 years in prison and possibly even a life sentence, with charges including racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transporting individuals for prostitution, all carrying serious prison time. Throughout the trial, the absence of Anthony Rico from Diddy's defense team has remained a quiet but notable point. And while the reason for his exit, whether ethical concerns, strategy disagreements, or undisclosed issues, remains unclear, the defense has continued without him, staying focused on the argument of consent. Rico had represented Diddy from September 2024 until February 21, 2025, during which he likely played a role in the early strategy and evidence review, possibly shaping the defense's initial direction. But even after his departure, that core argument hasn't changed. The addition of Brian Steele to the defense team brought new experience, especially considering Steele's work defending Young Thug in Georgia's longest criminal trial. And despite Rico's exit, the defense still includes seasoned lawyers experienced in high-profile cases. As the trial moves forward, the reason behind Rico's sudden departure may never be fully known due to attorney-client privilege, but the trial continues to unfold daily with new testimony and evidence shaping Diddy's fate. Remember when Cat Williams said that Diddy tries to buy people's silence and you have to say no? Well, Monique backed that up and didn't hold back, saying everything Cat claimed was true, and she went even further by suggesting that Kim Porter's death might not have been what it seemed. That's when things got serious, because according to insiders, Diddy didn't just ignore it. He allegedly started making secret moves to silence her. In this video, we're breaking down the reported threats, insider claims, and chilling allegations because right now Diddy is locked up and facing intense charges, over 63 lawsuits and federal charges that have shaken his entire empire. The man who once ruled the hip-hop world is now fighting for his freedom in a Manhattan courtroom, where the feds have hit him with racketeering, sex trafficking, and transporting for prostitution charges. And the trial officially began on May 12th, 2025. But this isn't just about Diddy's current legal troubles. It could involve something even darker, with allegations tying him to the mysterious death of his ex, Kim Porter, and Monique possibly being targeted for speaking out. Let's rewind and break it down. Kim Porter was Diddy's on-again, off-again girlfriend from 1994 to 2007, and they had 3 children together. Christian in 1998, and twin daughters Jessie James and Delilah Starr in 2006, and Diddy also helped raise her son Quincy from a previous relationship. Despite their breakup, they remained close co-parents, and when Porter suddenly passed away in 2018 at age 47, Diddy was said to be devastated. The official cause of death, according to the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office, was lobar pneumonia, and the case was declared closed. But things didn't end there, because as Diddy's world began to collapse under the weight of serious accusations, new questions about Porter's death have emerged. In a recent interview, Kim Porter's ex, Al B. Sure, dropped a bombshell when asked if he believed she died from pneumonia, and he answered firmly, "Absolutely not."
Cause P. Diddy be wanting to party, and you gotta tell him no.
Albie sure went on to describe seeing Kim Porter at a Netflix event celebrating their son's Christmas special, where she looked completely healthy, and he even noted that Diddy was also present and everything seemed normal between them. But then Albie sure dropped another shocking claim. When asked if he believed that Diddy or people connected to him had something to do with the multi-organ failure that left him in a coma in 2022, he responded without hesitation,